Condolences are pouring in after the death of businessman Richard Maponya. President Ramaphosa has sent his condolences to the Maponya family. Ramaphosa has called Maponya a doyen of black business who paved the way for the racial transformation of the country's economy. Maponya passed away earlier this morning at the age of 99. Maponya started his business career in the 1950s when he and his wife opened a milk distribution company in Soweto. The man, known as the father of black retail in South Africa, developed the Maponya Mall in Soweto. He received many awards in his lifetime, and just last year he became the second person to win the Lifetime Achiever Award, which is the highest accolade in the 30-year-old Entrepreneur of the Year competition. The legendary businessman maintained an active interest in the economy and was recently reported to be planning to open an academy to train the youth on how to be entrepreneurs. Well, the ANC has also paid tribute to Maponya.
The ANC is deeply saddened by the passing of Richard Maponya. As you know, his relationship with the ANC dates back to many, many years ago. Even during the underground years of the ANC, he was in contact with the leadership of the ANC in Lusaka, was a person that people could go and talk to, and was a contact person for internal cadre who were able to get messages through him to people who were in exile. He's also one of the, he's a legend in his own right, in that he's steadfast understanding of building a business from the ground up and working hard himself for it, and that nothing came easily, is something that many people can learn from. And I hope that as days go by and people talk about him, they'll also talk about how he began his career as a business person. And, you know, there was no handouts for people like Richard Maponya. He worked hard and got where he is through the sweat of his brow. So we're sad that he's gone, but he's left a very remarkable memory for all of us to lean on. And I think his legacy is quite a powerful one.
Well, Mr. Maponya was a man of many talents. He was a trained teacher, but his real passion was in retail, and he met many obstacles in trying to set up businesses during the Apartheid era. But clearly, he was not deterred. He was also an organiser, founding the National Federated Chamber of Commerce. Well, to talk about the man's achievements and his impact on South African business and society, I'm joined in studio by Sandile Zungu. He's the president of the Black Business Council. Thanks very much for joining us, Mr. Zungu.
Thank you for having me here, Number.
So Mr. Maponya really was an amazing character. He didn't have the benefit of BEE during apartheid times, and yet he managed to build an empire in retail across many different spheres. Just tell us what you see as some of his key achievements, particularly in the dark days of apartheid.
Well, we are deeply saddened by the loss, but at 99 he had a fair share of innings, so we need to celebrate his life and his achievements. He started his business during the dark days of apartheid, where black people were not expected to create wealth. He defied apartheid, and as you know, he ultimately owned property that he developed to Maponya Mall, and in the process inspired a lot of people, inspired multiple generations. So that is his achievement, to create that legacy that is obviously and patently sustainable. His family is involved in the business. To talk about Kilimanjaro, which was a consortium that had a bottling relationship with Coca-Cola, are just some of the notable achievements.
Yes.
But most importantly, he just inspired generations.
I understand, and we did read about it in the introduction, that his wife was a real force as well alongside him.
You know, incidentally, I was in Atlanta in December, and I had the privilege of meeting Felicia Mabuza-Satlo. And she spoke so passionately about the influence that not only did Marina Maponya had on the family, but also in the neighborhood. So she was a powerful woman.
Yes.
And the fact that Maponya will have brought in even his daughter Chichi, notably, into the fold of his business, it shows just how much confidence that Maponya had in women around him to influence him as well as to empower.
The really great thing, you touched on the Maponya Mall, the really great thing at the time of the opening is that Nelson Mandela was involved. He opened the actual ceremony and so on. But how significant was that conception and actualization of the Maponya Mall by the man?
Look, Maponya clearly is someone who lived for Africa. He lived for his people. The fact that he chose to develop this mall in Soweto when people did not believe in the buying power of black consumers, did not believe in developing and investing, sinking wealth in black areas, talks of the prowess of this man. So it was very significant, and many people now talk of developing the malls in Umlazi, Gugulethu, Mitchell's Plain and the rest, because they've seen the success that he made of the Maponya Mall.
He was a trailblazer.
He was a trailblazer, and may his legacy and memory live on.
Now, one of the things that was also quite wonderful about him is that he founded a NAFCOC. That's the association that basically serves to look after the interests of small businesses. How impactful was that, and how important a move was that?
Well, he was the founder, but also the first president of NAFCOC. And when we formed the Black Business Council not so long ago, he is one of those people whose opinions really mattered. He had a peculiar view of how black economic empowerment needed to unfold, and he expressed his views publicly. We appreciated his views, we welcomed them, and to the extent that they shaped even our thinking around how the codes of good practice need to be tweaked to encourage a more entrepreneurial spirit. So his views, in terms of how black business need to organize themselves, certainly something that we will remember for a long time.
He was quite exemplary in terms of giving back. Not that he needed to give back, but he chose to give back. He invested his money in areas that he found were of passion to him, but also benefited society. For example, the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, he was involved in that. And I also understand that because he was very concerned about high unemployment levels, he also wanted to establish a training academy, particularly for youngsters.
Look, how better to plow back than to invest a lot of your own wealth in where people live, to have that as a living monument to inspire generations. How better to develop or to invest in your community than to nurture, to coach and to mentor young aspiring people. Wherever Maponya went, I attended a lot of meetings with the National Empowerment Corporation Consortium when Jonik was about to be taken over. I could see a lot of young men and women around Maponya who were obviously inspired by his learnings and leadership experiences.
Yes.
So he invested in people, he invested in where people live. All these other corporate social investment and philanthropic causes are just a further testimony of the man.
So given your interactions with him and your knowledge of him, what do you as Sandile Zungu, the businessman, take away from your experience of him and some of his lessons?
You know, when I came up to Johannesburg in 1992, I knew very few people, but I knew I was coming into the realm and the sphere of influence of Maponya, and I was very proud of that. Not just Maponya, but Mohale Mahanyele, among others like Motsonyane. So it's just his sheer presence inspired some of us. So in my opinion, Maponya is a kind of person who will inspire many generations to rise up to the challenge. One of working for Africa, making sure that you work till your last day, and not just laze around and be a nuisance to your own grandchildren, but work and leave a legacy. He is a person who was never associated with scandal. He was neat, prim and proper, and being a person who oozed the positivity. He worked hard, undoubtedly, but he appreciated that business was a long-term game.
Yes.
So this idea of self-aggrandizement and short-term benefits is not what you could associate Maponya with. So young people who want to be Maponyas need to appreciate that there's value in blood, sweat, and tears, and slogging it out.
Yes.
And not relying on government. Yes, we have to rely on our government. You know, it's our government. But
Yes.
Maponya went into business when the government of the day was a regime which was hostile to his interests.
Yes.
But he was not allowed to own licenses, but he's pushed on. So young people of today need to also say, let's be single-minded when I start businesses. Yes, let's trust on government to be there for us, but let's not solely depend on government. Let's build our own businesses, and through blood, sweat, and tears, we shall triumph.
On that very positive note, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. That was Sandile Zungu. He is a businessman who is well known and has many interests in the business sphere. Well, for more